Hey, everybody. Welcome to this special interview. I'm going to play it in a moment, but first, I have an exciting announcement. Longtime Gaslit Nation listeners have often heard me quote a saying that I heard in Ukraine back when I lived there in 2016 for a couple months, like half a year. And this saying was, the oligarchs see the people like the shit they grow their money in. And that is everything that we are up against. As I've long said on Gaslit Nation, it is infuriating that narcissist Trump sucks all the energy, all the oxygen out of the room. Like he is a reality show host of terror. He knows exactly what he's doing. And his narcissism is giving cover to a lot of criminals, a lot of corruption, including of extremely elite, fancy looking people that are hiding in the shadows, profiting off of this chaos and the world's misery. So it is time to make them famous. For that, the fantastic, fearless Russian mafia expert Olga Lotman of the Trump Tyranny Tracker over on Substack, she and I are joining forces to launch a new show called, of course, Follow the Money, where every week we are going to highlight names, name them, make them famous, drag people out of the shadows into the light, because it's not all Trump. It's not going to stop with Trump when he goes away. Trump came to power with the help of elites, with the help of a lot of corporations, shadow networks, and it's time to highlight who is getting rich off of this, who is having a grand old time. So I'm excited for this show. If you are a Gaslit Nation subscriber, you will get access to this show. So don't worry. You don't have to do anything. You are all set. And it's going to come out. We're not sure yet. we're doing our first episode this coming week, probably on Wednesdays or Thursdays. And we're so excited to bring it to you. And for the Gaslit Nation listeners who are joining us over on Patreon for our Monday Salon happening today at 4 p.m. Eastern, the Zoom link is there for you. And I'm obviously, as you can hear from the sound of my voice, very amped up. There's a lot for us to talk about. We can talk about the polka dotted dressed woman, the woman who was just on her way home, like dressed, as though she's like walking out of corporate America in the streets of Lower Manhattan, where she made it her business to try to stop an ICE raid of Canal Street. Canal Street is a monument of New York City street life culture where people, yes, immigrants, sell knock-off goods. Everyone knows this. It's like this long-running joke that if you want a good fake Rolex, you go to Canal Street. If you want a good fake designer bag, you go to Canal Street. That's been part of the beautiful, extremely rich and diverse character of New York City for decades. I remember as a kid going up and down Canal Street and seeing these people there. And ICE went after them because of some MAGA influencer snitch. Snitch, snitch, snitch. That's what the MAGA culture is, just like in the Soviet days. They would glamorize these snitches. And it's all back. Anyway, so this wonderful woman in a polka dot dress on her way home from work with a big old handbag just got in the faces of these ICE agents, these federal agents, and terrified them with her force of spirit, because that is what New York City is. And I'm just so proud of that. So there's a lot for us to talk about at today's salon. I'm excited to hear from you all what's happening in your neck of the woods. Lots to discuss there. Who knows what news will break by the time we all see each other at 4 p.m. today. Obviously, a lot more news is going to break when we finally see each other. So whatever is on your mind, whatever you want to talk about, however you want to vent, whatever you want to share with us, whatever you are working on that you want us to amplify here at Gaslit Nation among our community members, our listeners, come share it at the salon today at 4 p.m. Eastern. The Zoom link is there for you on Patreon. Thank you to everyone who supports the show and makes Gaslit Nation possible. Now, here is our special interview giving me hope in Gen Z and reminding us all that in the cycles of history, the youth are rising up.
I never set out to make history. I just wanted to make a difference. But when I became the first Gen Z elected official in the country at 21, I knew something bigger was possible. My story starts with my father, the youngest of 12. He left Pakistan with $20 and a dream. He used to say my daughter could be president one day because she was born here. My name is Bushra Amiwala, and I'm running for Congress in Illinois' ninth District because the way we've been doing things are not working. The rich are getting richer, the middle class is shrinking, all while people like Donald Trump work to divide us to push their agenda forward. I was born and raised in this district, put myself through college, earned my graduate degree right here from Northwestern University, and continue to give back through civic and nonprofit work in the very community that shaped me. I've spent my entire career in tech, social entrepreneurship, and public service innovating solutions in broken systems. I've earned the trust of everyday people, built bridges across communities, and advanced progress without corporate PACs or special interest groups. I'm Bushra Amiwala, and I'm ready to be your voice in Washington. Join me today. A fresh perspective from someone who's never forgotten where she's from.
I am so excited to be joined today by Bushra Amiwala. She is a leading Gen Z voice and an elected leader on the Skokie School Board of Education in Illinois. In 2019, she became the first Gen Z woman and youngest Muslim elected official in the United States, earning recognition in the Chicago History Museum. Born in Chicago to Pakistani immigrants, Amiwala was inspired to enter politics amid the rising anti-immigrant and anti-Muslim hate during Trump's first era, which seems very quaint compared to what we're up against today. At 19, she ran for the Cook County Board of Commissioners, earning over 35% of the vote in a three-way race. In 2019, she was elected to the Skokie School Board of Education and reelected in 2023. Miwala holds a BS in Management Information Systems from DePaul University, where she was the 2020 commencement speaker, and is pursuing her MBA at Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management. A prominent Gen Z political activist, Amiwala advocates for accessible government, student debt relief, reproductive freedom, Medicare for all, environmental justice, and AI regulation. She has received the United Nations Gender Equality Award and was named to Forbes 30 Under 30. In June 2025, she announced her campaign for Congress in Illinois' ninth District. Welcome to Gaslit Nation.
Hello. Thank you for that introduction.
I'm so excited to talk to you because there's been all this incredible coverage of Gen Z toppling governments around the world using internet memes as in Japanese anime as flags. So Gen Z is rising up, it's activated. I've covered dictatorships for decades, and it's always the young people who get the job done. And that's not to say it's up to the future generations to save us and clean up our messes. It's just the reality that young people have just such a fresh energy and a fresh vision, and they're looking at everything with these new eyes going, why does it have to be this way? It really doesn't. So, what are your thoughts as a Gen Z woman today looking at America?
I think about how Gen Z is not only activated today in 2025, we have been at the forefront leading change and movements, but I always like to give credit where it's due. To even take a step back, the generations that came before us are the reason why a candidate like me can be successful and run for public office in the first place. So being the first means that I carry their legacy on my shoulders. And being the first also means that I don't have a playbook that I had to follow. So there were a lot of mistakes that I made in real time that I've seen other Gen Z candidates learn from, and I'm grateful to have been that case study for them.
And so, what advice do you have for other Gen Z listeners who are thinking, well, why would anyone vote for me?
I remind people a couple things. One, this sincerity is something that really sets people apart, regardless of age and background. Because as a young leader, running for the sake of running is not enough. That's what we saw in 2018. We were like, just vote for me because I'm young. But now the sincere dedication and commitment to your community, because it's a collective. I, as an individual, will not change anything, but collectively with my community and other young individuals and bright leaders that are willing to fight the good fight, we collectively can take on the system, but individually we can't. So the best piece of advice is find your people, but also be that person and be that community for others. And it's the best way to earn trust, support, and your own base.
So, Gen Z power is growing across the United States. You're increasingly becoming the largest voting bloc. Who are some other Gen Z leaders, whether you know them or not, that you look to now for moral leadership?
I think there's this interesting bright line between young millennials and Gen Zers because a lot of us were thrusted into the space at the same time, and many of us were captivated after the 2016 presidential election. So I think about my friend Musab Ali, who was one of the first also young millennials elected to public office come exactly out of the wake of the Trump election. He's now running for mayor of Jersey City. He'd also been on a school board for 4 years. I look at Rep. Maxwell Frost, who is one of the first Gen Zs ever in Congress. And the thing is, though, the lessons that I take from leaders, they're not just Gen Z leaders. I see people that are members of the squad, like Rep. Ayanna Pressley, Rep. Pramila Jayapal, Rep. Rashida Tlaib, and these are all people that are the first in their own doctrines and other ways that lead so graciously that these lessons, again, being the first in a space, we are the people that are making the playbook for others to follow. So anytime we can pull lessons of resilience, I think is the biggest one. Because in the day and age of social media, we don't suddenly have our constituents critiquing us. We have national people that are not stakeholders and don't have skin in the game that will say things just for the sake of saying them.
Yeah, absolutely. There's like this manufactured hate machine. It's exactly like the sort of weaponization of disinformation the Kremlin employs to wage their global war of fascism against democracy, and the whole MAGA machine has it here at home, and they target local politicians, like local organizers like you running for the school board. They've turned school boards into a battleground. How what does that look like where you live?
So for us, when we were running for the school board, what's great is that locally, no matter what narrative or disinformation exists online, people see through that. People are like, well, we know Bushra. We've worked alongside her. We volunteered alongside her. We taught her when she was a student. Like, these are the roots that they're up against, which is why being familiar with the people and the leaders and the everyday individuals and their everyday problems in a community is so important. And it's what money can't buy. Really, that is the stuff that is only earned. I will say now, as a federal candidate running for a national House seat, some of that national noise does infiltrate in ways where it's a lot more intense. But I just see those as kind of talking Twitter heads online where it's easy to filter through that noise as well.
So your governor in Illinois, Pritzker, who just won he just recently announced he won $1.4 million playing blackjack in Las Vegas, which I personally find very aspirational. He has emerged as a frontline voice against Trump. How do you feel he's doing, and what do you wish he would do or say to really uh, protect our democracy in this time?
JB Pritzker is meeting the moment exactly where it's at. Like, he knows he's in a blue state where he has a legacy and has the ability to be able to codify things into Illinois state law. And he is able to use his platform in a way that is productive, especially where something like being a governor of a state, you typically aren't the means that is advocating against our nation's leader. Yet he sees that as a responsibility. And I think that's great. In the same breath and vein, I do think that there's always a little bit more that can be done. But I think when I look at what JB Pritzker's jurisdiction falls within the state of Illinois, he's doing all the right things. He's bringing and advocating clean, green, new energy and technology. He's speaking out against ICE. He's pushing back against the dis and misinformation that Chicago is not safe when crime has been at its all time lowest of lows. So these are the right things that are happening. And I'm pretty proud of him as our governor.
And what is your vision for America? We see MAGA's vision, which is Nazism. All these young Republican chat rooms that are getting exposed for praising Hitler, for just being like Nazi ad libs. So we know what their vision is. It's concentration camps, death camps, ethnic cleansing. What is your alternative to that?
My vision is that any single person that lives in this country, regardless of race, gender, ethnic background, gender identity, sexuality, can find a positive life in the United States. That is it. I don't want to see corporations profiting off of our backs as workers while we are struggling to pay rent and purchase groceries for the week. I think that that has stripped away what this land was created on, which, by the way, was colonialistic in its own virtues and rituals too. But at the minimum, this was a space in place. And I think about my parents' story coming to the United States as well of, you just work hard and be a good person and be nice to your neighbor. And that's how things can and should roll. And in a way, it's what the true epitome of making America great actually looks like.
What would you say to someone who says that all sounds like the wokety woke agenda?
I would say this is the OG agenda. Have you read our Constitution?
In this time of hellfire, you've been on the front lines of the ICE protests. What have you seen there that particularly shocked you?
So, two things when I speak about ICE. I tell people about proactive and reactive modes of protest. I've been proactively organizing against ICE in my community since February, in partnership with the Niles Township Rapid Response Team, in partnership with community leaders who speak the myriad of languages that are reflected in our communities, because we are the voices that are trusted in educating the most vulnerable communities on how and what to know when it comes to knowing your rights. On the flip side, reactive modes of protest is us showing up outside of the ICE Broadview processing facility. So in Illinois, we don't have any detention centers. So when someone gets kidnapped by ICE, they get taken to this processing facility. They have their thumbprints done. They get assigned an A number, which literally means alien number if they don't already have one. And then within 24 hours, they're shipped off to some other state where these detention facilities, which, by the way, are privately owned, actually are. So it's really both forms of protest need to simultaneously exist to fight back against an entrenched institution like ICE, where when we are in a federal government shutdown, these are somehow the only employees that are still getting paid right now.
Which isn't it just yeah. I don't even have words for the fury that of flames that wanna come out of my mouth hearing that. And so in terms of how dark things are right now, and we have Republicans under Trump's pressure campaigns trying to gerrymander everything so that they automatically win the House of Representatives, which you're running for. What concerns do you have? Like, what are you seeing? What are you hearing on the ground there about our elections essentially being predetermined? It is what authoritarian experts called an electoral autocracy, where you still go through the routine of having elections because the dictators like to have that air of legitimacy, but the outcome is, of course, predetermined. What would you say to someone listening saying, "We're lost, like, it's done, game over, and we need to just start" I don't know, go towards more extreme measures because the elections don't even matter anymore. They don't exist.
I hear this at the doors all the time. We've been knocking on doors very consistently and actively since July. And the fear of our democracy being stripped in front of our eyes is something that uniquely comes up regardless of age, is something that I think is also really interesting. And I call it the age demographic because that means that people consume very different modes of media, all have the same fear when it comes to our right to vote, our right to express preference of who we want representing us. People see the Trump 2028 logo and they know what that means. And I don't want to discredit any of that fear, but my call to action and my ask becomes, how do we translate that fear into productive modes of action? So I spoke at a No Kings rally this weekend, and in my remarks, shared it's wonderful that we're all here, but where will we all be a week from today? And I always set the reminder of whatever we do to fight against this institution has to be consistent. I know we have sudden urges and ways to do a lot today, and then suddenly we're burnt out just a month from now, and that's not sustainable. So what we do consistently. If we're writing postcards to voters to educate people on why showing up for this election matters, because the reason why 2024 can be written off as whatever it was is people say, well, actually, I did not vote because I was not moved by either party, right? So we had lower voter turnout as well. So all of this is related in that way. So my ask becomes, anger and fear is good and productive if translated into direct action.
Absolutely, like I'm always saying, there's the only way out is building political power. All of the thugs we're up against understood that. It's not they all won elections. to crime. You know what I mean? Like, to continue their crime spree, they won elections. They won elections. And so we have to win elections from the bottom up. In terms of the school boards, that is a battleground. The Christian nationalists, far right, that brought Trump to power, they want to just obviously get rid of the Department of Education. They want to force people into homeschooling, force women back into homes. What is, in your view, the anecdote against that? Because we can't have a democracy. Like the ancient Greeks understood this and told us this. We cannot have a democracy without education.
Education is and always will be one of the first things that any authoritarianistic regime will come towards because it's the best way to stop people from thinking critically. It's the best way to promote this brain drain of thinking for yourself. And we saw even in our school board elections, we saw people wanting to ban books written by certain authors. We saw people wanting to erase Black history. We saw people wanting to rewrite curriculum when it's already been written from such a white nationalistic lens to begin with. And again, this is all being intentionally done to try to control a narrative, to try to brainwash this next generation. And in a way, we are lucky that we have access to more information than we ever have before. And that is truly the best way to fight back. And I tell people that my generation, while is wonderful in a lot of ways, my generation also sometimes doesn't read beyond the headlines. We give into the clickbait. And the best form of resistance in the power and pursuit of knowledge is to read beyond the headlines and be critical thinkers now more than ever before.
Absolutely. And so, final question. What helps you stay grounded in this fight, especially when the MAGA virus wants to infect all of us with fear?
Not to be cheesy, but it really is faith and faith in a lot of things. One, faith in myself, faith in my community, faith in the leaders that I do know and trust, faith in organizations like even ICER, which is the Illinois Coalition of Immigrant and Refugee Rights, which has been doing the work on the ground for years now. And faith in a higher power, of course, because I remind myself that the two things I have control over are my intention and my effort. And my intent is to make a positive difference in my community, and my effort shows up in every single thing that I do every day. And those are the two things that I will continue to control and have control over.